Saturday. It's 3:00 kickoff, brought forward due to policing here because it is the Manchester Derby. And we will take a look at betting, the early betting that we have at Matchbook.com. The 90-minute markets, these will fill out as we get closer to kickoff. But Man City are available at around 1.54. United 6.4. The draw is 5.0. Opposite to the Europa League final here, both teams to score heavily favoured in this market at around 1.7. The Asian handicap line sees Manchester United get a 1.25 goal head start at 1.84. Where would you have got that a few years ago in a big final? And the goal line is 2.5, shaded towards the over at 1.63. Again, early prices, they will probably push out towards kickoff. Mark, I'll get you to set up this game for us. You've got Manchester City chasing the treble. You've got Erik ten Hag, who could have an unbelievable season if he manages to lift 2 cups as well as top 4. So set this game up for us if you can. It's going to be it's just a massive, massive occasion.
Yeah, so the Manchester Derby's been played 188 times in history, but this is the first ever meeting in a major cup final, really. So huge match. City, understandably, a short price favourite. They've won 4 of the last 6 meetings, including both in the Premier League this year. 6-3 and 2-1, but I think United have improved since then. The 6-3 obviously came quite early in Ten Hag's reign. I did think they improved thereafter. I thought they became a bit more of an efficient and effective team rather than the sort of dominant and all-conquering Man City side, but they were effective. The big question now, I guess, for Ten Hag is can he translate his Old Trafford form for Manchester United into this fixture? Because away from home they have been iffy at best, really. At Old Trafford, they've been almost imperious, really. Easily the best defence in the league, an excellent points return as well. They only dropped 9 points and conceded 10 goals at Old Trafford in the Premier League all season, but away from home, just 8 wins, and they ended the season with just 7 points from the last 7 away games as well. So I think what's most concerning from a United perspective was that record away at the top 9, 7 defeats from 8 winless games. And the market never really did trust them in these big matches either outside of Old Trafford. As we remember, they went off outsiders at Wembley in the FA Cup semi-final against Brighton, a match they only had 39% of the ball, and they really sort of had to grind that game out to get to penalties. So I do have concerns about United, but I guess it's worth remembering this is a team which is full of quality operators, really, throughout the spine. De Gea is obviously questionable, but Varane's available. Casemiro's made a huge difference in the middle of that midfield. Bruno's recovered really well from the Anfield debacle. Rashford's had an incredible campaign, really, too. So they are dangerous. I don't expect them to be rolled over easily, but I think you still have to be sort of pro-City because their top speed, their top level it's just a level that no one can match on this planet. And, they've rested and rotated since that Real Madrid incredible performance really in the second leg, and their big squad has kind of allowed Pep to do that, to keep his key players fit and fresh throughout the season. If you are nitpicking, I guess you could point as well to City's away record too, because against the same top 9, City have won just once on the road in their Premier League, which was at Arsenal. They scored 34 goals and 19 away, which is a decent total, but it's dwarfed by their Etihad record as well. And they weren't often demolishing teams on their travels. They were much more measured, and we saw that as well away in the Champions League. I know the first legs were away from home, so it required a different approach. But domestically, I think we have seen them occasionally have trouble sort of breaking down low blocks, occasionally having trouble moving the ball quick enough to penetrate teams, and occasionally Haaland's not been able to get into the game. So I think there is an opportunity for United here, but they have to be absolutely on point in terms of their game plan, their tactical approach, and they have to be incredibly efficient when they get those opportunities as well, because they do have the speed and the ability to hurt this Man City team. It is a cup final. It's a one-off match on neutral venue, so you can't just discount them because your City are, this all-conquering team on the way to the treble. However, as we get to, when I get to my best bet, I find it difficult not to be pro-City.
Yeah, Man City under 4.5 goals, around even money. Mark O'Haire is looking at potentially. Won't give too much away ahead of the best bets. Miguel, over to you on this one. Erik ten Hag in general, what have you made of his first season? Because in some ways he's transformed the club, what he's done off the pitch. Cristiano Ronaldo, I think I read somewhere, I think he's 41 wins out of 60-ish games this season. Incredible record in some ways. In other ways, you look at that squad and say, is this not the bare minimum that Manchester United should be at? So where are you on that scale from one to the other?
I think broadly things are looking very positive, and that's signposted by the trophy, the return to the Champions League, and perhaps another trophy. Obviously, within that, there's been some humiliations. It has to be noted. There's also been just a little bit of a debate occasionally about kind of some comparisons to Solskjaer's record, but I think that's that's kind of pointless again. And Ten Hag's a better manager with a better idea of football. And I think the one grand caveat you would say, if there are some kind of in that debate, is that what Ten Hag is basically trying to do is impose a new tactical idea on a team that essentially didn't have anything like that sort of coaching for years. So they're getting up to speed. That's an ongoing process. He doesn't have all the players he wants yet. I think they're still missing players who specifically understand that type of approach in key roles. And while it hasn't been perfect, it's been promising. But there's still an element of kind of, you wouldn't completely rely on this United yet. And it does feel like, as we've seen from some of these defeats, particularly the Liverpool one, given the form they went into that game on, it's almost touch and go whether they can produce a brilliant performance as they did, say, against Barcelona just before winning that League Cup, or suddenly it just falls apart on the day. And actually both games against City indicate that, with the grand caveat, of course, there, that they were dictated by this kind of variance in there, or this huge contrast in home form and away form. This is, of course, a neutral ground. And also, I do think the FA Cup, just the fact it's a final like this just does change the context as well. As you go into this game, given all momentum, all talk about City, it's just, and given what the kind of what the odds in advance of the match suggest, it's difficult not to think City would just roll them away. But I think there is enough there to kind of to maybe not be so gung-ho in that. In fact, I have to say, United's price was so high, given this is a one-off game, and given this is Manchester United, and they have beaten City already this season. That was almost attractive in itself. They didn't quite have the bravery to go for it. But I do think that while both of their games this season saw the two teams score, given how City have played, given the change to their tactical approach since that game, I think Ten Hag is going to play this a fair bit cannier. Not approach the game as we talked about Mourinho does, but certainly much more pragmatic. Maybe look to hit City on the counter a bit more. And I think the tension is going to be huge in this game, given the stake. I mean, for all that City have been freewheeling towards the title, there was kind of almost an inevitability about the title. Now this is a game they have to win. It's a one-off, and if they don't get this, and that's the treble goes. Even, of course, the grander prize is the Champions League. Given how close they are, something historic, and given how associated this feat has been with Manchester United, their great rivals, there's been a symbolism to it, and that can affect the game as well. And I realise I'm going off a lot of kind of maybe the psychological input or the mood of the game, but I think that the history of the FA Cup final itself dictates, the history of some similar games at Wembley dictates that. And for that, I'm almost kind of leaning towards a low-scoring 1-0 or 2-0. I could really go either way. So I'm actually thinking both teams to score no, because it's quite it's relatively high priced in the context, and I do think this could be a 1-0 either way.
It's an underdog in the mark, Miguel. Yeah, 2.22 currently both teams to score no. Mark, for you, I kind of mentioned earlier, so City under 4.5 goals is where you're leaning. I guess taking some Miguel's point, are you expecting Erik ten Hag to really sit in on this Manchester United? Because you look, I know it's a different case, but Arsenal went and tried to beat them with football at the Etihad and got well and truly battered. So there is that danger if you don't sit in that the game could be over after 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, I think he'd be foolish to kind of go after and chasing City. I think United do have strengths to play on the counter-attack, so that's how I see them approaching this match. But in terms of price, Brighton were as short as 2.15 to beat Manchester United at Wembley in the FA Cup semi-final come kick-off. So to see Manchester City at around 1.55, there's already a bit of interest there for me. So to back them at sort of even money by including under 4.5 goals, it's just too good to turn down, in my opinion. I know there's a kind of goals-based angle, and opposing goals in Man City matches isn't always the most fun to follow, really. But this is a cup final. They're rarely high scoring. And if City are, let's say, 2 or 3 goals to the good and controlling the contest after an hour, they will have an eye or half an eye on the Champions League final the following week. So, if City do sort of demolish United early doors, I don't expect them to play full throttle football for 90 minutes. I think there will be an opportunity for them to sort of rest, rotate, and maybe look ahead. So the win on the under 4.5 goals for me is just a tremendous boost on the straight City win. considering all the likely correct scores it covers: 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 2-1, or 3-1. This is a cup final as well. 7 of the last 10 have gone under, as have 16 of the last 25 FA Cup finals. Only 2 of those 25 finals actually featured over 4.5 goals. And actually, if you look at the teams to win the FA Cup final in 90 minutes, just once since 1979 has a team winning alongside over 4.5 goals copped, and that was when Man City destroyed Watford 6-0 not so long ago, really. Do not expect a repeat of that. So I think it's an excellent price. I think whenever you get an opportunity to back City at evens with a decent amount of correct scores on your side, I think it's worth an interest.
Okay, Mark's going for City and under 4.5 goals at even money. Miguel expecting a cage again. Both teams score no, 2.22. Fascinating game coming up in Wembley on Saturday. We'll move to our long shots.